Well, back to one of our top stories. The uMkhonto Sizwe Party says it will appeal the ruling interdicting impeached John Hlophe's participation, this in the JSC. It comes after the Western Cape High Court ruled in favour of the DA's urgent application earlier today. For more reaction on this, I'm joined by Willie Aucamp, who's the DA's spokesperson. Willie, good to have you on the programme this evening. Firstly, how does the court's decision to bar Dr. Schloep from the JSC, how does it reflect on the broader issue of judicial integrity in the country?
Good evening, Mr. That is the reason why we brought this application. Our application was brought in two parts. The first part is to interdict Mr. Schloep from sitting on the Judicial Services Commission that is going to sit on the 7th of October, who coincidentally will have to appoint a judge president for the Western Cape, which was the position that Dr. Schloep held before he was impeached. So it is very important for the independence of the judiciary that we have brought this application. We must protect the judiciary, its objectivity and its independence. And we are very glad that the court agreed with us. In our application, we brought this application together with Freedom Under Law and Corruption Watch. And as I said, our application was in two parts. So the first part of urgency, the court agreed with us on that. And they also said, the three judges in the court, that there is a high likelihood of our application in the second part preventing Mr. Schloep of ever sitting on the Judicial Services Commission to be successful. And that is why the interdict that we applied for was approved.
Can you elaborate a bit further on the role of the DA in advocating for what's termed as accountability within the National Assembly, but also regarding Hlophe's appointment as well?
Yeah, well, the DA is a party for the rule of law, and we believe that our constitution must be upheld, and our constitution is very clear. If you look at section 1654 of our constitution, it says that the National Assembly and state organs has got a duty to protect the independence of the judiciary. And we were of the opinion that the decision that the National Assembly took when they appointed Dr. Schloep to the Judicial Services Commission was not a step in the right direction towards protecting the independence of the judiciary. And that is one of the main reasons why we took it on to review. This is not about politics as the MK tried to accuse us of. It is about protecting the Constitution, for which we know they do not have a lot of respect. So the Democratic Alliance will always stand up for the Constitution. If you look at section 178 of the Constitution, it also says that the Judicial Services Commission must consist out of 6 members of Parliament as well, from the National Assembly side. 3 of those members must be from the opposition benches. But it does not prescribe a formula that must be followed. It does not give a formula of which party can get how much. So the National Assembly, according to the Democratic Alliance, definitely had a choice not to accept the nomination from uMkhonto Sizwe Party side of Dr. Schloep. They can give us another name, but we can't have an impeached judge, former judge, sitting on a committee that will appoint judges in the future. It is very important that our judges' character must be above all scrutiny. And it's clear that Dr. Schloep's character is not.
Let's explore that point. What are the implications of Hlophe's impeachment, both for the credibility of political nominations to JSC bodies in South Africa, but also in principle as well?
Again, we expect from our judges to have a certain level of integrity and be beyond reproach. But then we must also expect that from the people serving on the committee that's going to appoint those judges. It's very important that that committee cannot be tainted. The other risk that we are going to face with the appointment of Dr. Schloep to the Judicial Services Commission is that there will be a number of judges and advocates who apply for positions on the bench that will not have, they don't want to appear before him. They do not trust the system when he's there. So we've got to protect the judiciary, and that is why we brought this application.
But from your standpoint, how do you believe the public perceives especially the National Assembly's decision to nominate Dr. Hlophe, especially in light of his impeachment as well?
Yeah, well, I do not think that the writers of our Constitution, when they wrote the Constitution, could have foreseen in their wildest dreams that there will ever be a situation where an impeached, disgraced former judge will firstly be elected to Parliament and secondly then be elected to serve on the Judicial Services Commission. So this is a test case. It is the first of its nature that we have got in South Africa. And we must now hope that the courts will carry on with this to give us guidelines on how we can go forward with this. The DA in our second application asked that the former impeached judge must not ever sit on the Judicial Services Commission. And I want to go as far as to say that if you have been impeached, like John Hlophe, like Sizwe Party, that you cannot even serve as a member of Parliament. We must clean up our house when it comes to the National Assembly. We must have people there that can really work for the people of South Africa and that can show that they've got an integrity basis that is beyond reproach. And you can clearly not say that of somebody that has been impeached. So the Democratic Alliance from our side will carry on with the main application. And as I said earlier, the judges in this judgment today said that there's a very high likelihood of us succeeding in our second application or part B of our application. And we hope that the courts will set the tone and that this will then be referred to the National Assembly so that legislation can be approved and be written and then taken through the whole process of preventing somebody that has been impeached and has been disgraced like John Hlophe for ever sitting on the Judicial Services Commission.
Now, Willie, I do know that you don't speak for the MK party, but in your view, how does this case then illustrate the importance of really adhering to constitutional principles, especially in political processes as well?
The MK party made it clear from day one that they want to scrap the Constitution. They are not a party for the Constitution, and that is extremely dangerous. We saw the number of people that they brought into Parliament in the last 3-4 weeks, people the likes of Brian Molefe, Lucky Montana, people that has all been implicated in the Zondo Commission that will face the grunt of the law sooner or later. And they just have a total disregard for the rule of law. They know that they've got people there that will have trouble with the law, and they just don't care about the Constitution, and they made it clear. And that brings us as the DA, but also the members of this government of national unity, to do everything in our power to uphold the Constitution of South Africa. If our Constitution fails, we as a country will fail. So we must really not shy away from doing that, and that is what the DA has demonstrated in this application.
But what reforms, if any, do you think are unnecessary, if you will, to prevent similar situations from arising in the future regarding judicial appointments as well?
Well, as I said, firstly, we've got to be guided by the courts now. So hopefully the courts will give a clear indication of their opinion on this. And then if it is unconstitutional to do this, what we believe it is, if you look at the clauses in the Constitution that demands of the National Assembly to act in the interest of the independence of the judiciary, it might very well be that the Constitutional Court can give guidance and give instruction that legislation must be brought into place to handle cases like this in the past. As I said before, nobody really could have predicted that this will happen. So it's a growing organism. Law is always a growing organism. And as things occur, you've got to make provision for that. And we hope that in the end, it will be a judgment of such nature that the National Assembly will be given instructions to change the laws and to make it clear that you cannot serve on the Judicial Services Commission if you have been an impeached judge. Or in the case of the members of Parliament, if you've been impeached by an organ of state like the former public protector, Sizwe Party, you cannot serve the public if you showed in the past that you do not care for the public, but that you drove your own agenda.
But as we wrap up our conversation, how does the DA then plan to ensure that the JSC remains independent and free from political influence, if you can?
Well, by doing what we have done here now, by speaking out when we see things that are wrong. We were, from the beginning, we voted in the National Assembly against this matter. We made our voice clear on that. We immediately approached the courts. We knew that the Judicial Service Commission will have to sit on the 7th of October. And that is why we brought this application on an urgent basis. So apart from court cases and being guided by the courts, we can put in a private member's bill. We can take this through cabinet. And as I said, I believe that the courts will give us guidance and will guide cabinet so that legislation can be introduced to sort this out, because this is something new. There is not anything in our law books for that. So we've got to rely on the Constitution, which, as I said before, nobody could have predicted that this will happen. So from the DA side, we will approach the courts. We are a party for the rule of law, and therefore we've got to be guided by the law. And part of law is also making legislation, and that will also, as I said, be guided by the law, but we will, in the end, put forward legislation that will iron out these issues and that will pave the way for preventing people like John Hlophe to ever serve on JSC or even as a member of Parliament.
Willie, thank you so much for your time. That's the DA's Willie Aucamp sharing his insights on this critical issue regarding judicial integrity as well as accountability in South Africa as well, on the backdrop of that story related to Dr. John Hlophe.